The year is 2025, it's 3 a.m., you're asleep, and across the Pacific Ocean, the largest amphibious invasion in human history has just begun. 2 million Chinese troops are crossing the Taiwan Strait. Missiles are raining down on Taipei. Fighter jets scream overhead. The world's most advanced semiconductors, the chips that power your phone, your car, your entire life, are about to fall into the hands of the Chinese Communist Party. And here's the terrifying part. This isn't speculation. It's the Pentagon's nightmare scenario. A war that wouldn't last months or years. 72 hours. That's all it would take to reshape everything. Before we show you exactly how this unfolds and why the global economy would collapse within days, hit that subscribe button and join the Wealth Forum. We break down the geopolitics, economics, and brutal truths that shape our world. Today, we're walking through the most dangerous flashpoint on Earth, the invasion of Taiwan. And trust me, this is not a war anyone wins. Let's get one thing straight. Taiwan is not just another island. It's the reason your modern life exists. That iPhone in your pocket, Taiwan made the chip. That laptop you're watching this on, Taiwan. Your car's computer system, your smart TV, the data centers running the internet, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, produces over 60% of the world's semiconductors and 90% of the most advanced chips. Without Taiwan, the global economy doesn't slow down, it stops. Now here's the problem. China considers Taiwan a renegade province, not a separate country, a breakaway territory that must be reunified with the mainland. And Chinese President Xi Jinping has made it his personal mission to bring Taiwan back under Beijing's control, by force if necessary. He's said it publicly, multiple times. The United States, on the other hand, has spent 70 years in strategic ambiguity. We don't officially recognize Taiwan as independent, but we've also made it clear quietly, through arms sales and military partnerships, that we would defend Taiwan if China attacked. It's the geopolitical equivalent of a ticking time bomb, and the fuse is getting shorter. Here's why it matters right now. China's military has spent the last 2 decades preparing for exactly this scenario. They've built the world's largest navy. They've developed hypersonic missiles specifically designed to sink US aircraft carriers. They've run invasion simulations over and over, and every year they get closer. US intelligence estimates that China could have the capability and will to invade Taiwan by 2027. That's 2 years away. This isn't a distant hypothetical. This is the most likely trigger for World War III. So how does an invasion of Taiwan actually happen? Let's walk through the mechanics, because this isn't like D-Day. This is 100 times more complex and 1,000 times more deadly. The Taiwan Strait is only 100 miles wide. Sounds close, right? But those 100 miles are one of the most heavily fortified kill zones on the planet. Taiwan has spent decades turning itself into a porcupine. Mobile missile launchers hidden in mountains, anti-ship mines scattered underwater, radar systems tracking every movement, and a population of 23 million people who do not want to be ruled by Beijing. But China has a plan, and it's terrifying in its precision. Phase 1. The missile barrage. Before a single Chinese soldier touches Taiwanese soil, thousands of ballistic and cruise missiles launch from the mainland. The targets aren't random. Air bases, ports, command centers, communication hubs, Taiwan's military leadership. The goal is decapitation. Cut off the head of Taiwan's defense in the first 30 minutes. Destroy their ability to coordinate, communicate, and fight back. Meanwhile, cyber attacks cripple Taiwan's power grid, financial systems, and internet. The entire island goes dark. Phase 2. Air and naval superiority. Chinese fighter jets flood the skies. Their navy, now the largest in the world, forms a blockade around the island. Nothing gets in. Nothing gets out. Taiwan's air force, while advanced, is outnumbered 5 to 1. Their pilots are skilled, but numbers matter, and China has numbers. Within 6 to 12 hours, China controls the airspace. Taiwan's navy, small and aging, is either sunk or forced to retreat to port. The island is now isolated. Phase 3. The landing. This is where it gets brutal. Amphibious warfare is the hardest military operation in existence. You're moving hundreds of thousands of troops across open water, onto hostile beaches under fire. China would need to land at least 500,000 soldiers in the first wave to overwhelm Taiwan's defenses. They'd use a combination of landing ships, helicopters, and possibly civilian ferries commandeered from the mainland. The beaches of Taiwan are not gentle. They're rocky, fortified, and covered by overlapping fields of fire. Taiwan's strategy is simple. Make every meter of beach cost 1,000 Chinese lives. Fill the surf with blood. Make the price so high that Beijing gives up. But here's China's advantage. They don't care about casualties. The Communist Party has proven, repeatedly, that it will sacrifice millions of lives for strategic goals. Mao did it, Xi will too. Phase 4. Urban warfare nightmare. Let's say China successfully lands troops. Now they have to take the cities. Taipei, a dense urban center of 7 million people, becomes Stalingrad. Every building is a fortress. Every street a kill zone. Taiwan's military trains specifically for urban guerrilla warfare. The civilian population is armed and trained. There's a rifle behind every door. China would be fighting house to house, block by block, against a motivated enemy defending their homes. This is where invasion timelines fall apart. Urban combat is slow. It's bloody. It's unpredictable. Even if China wins, they'd inherit a shattered, hostile city filled with insurgents. Occupation would be a decades-long nightmare. But here's the thing. China might not care about holding cities. They just need to control one thing. TSMC, the semiconductor factories in Hsinchu. If China can seize those facilities intact, they control the global tech supply chain overnight. That's the prize, not the land, not the people. The chips. Now let's talk about the part that keeps Pentagon war planners awake at night. The American response. Because the moment China invades Taiwan, the United States faces an impossible choice. Do we intervene? If yes, we're at war with a nuclear-armed superpower. If no, we've just abandoned our most important ally in Asia and handed China dominance over the Pacific. There is no good option. Let's say the US decides to intervene. What does that look like? The moment Chinese missiles start hitting Taiwan, US aircraft carriers currently stationed in Japan and Guam start moving toward the Taiwan Strait. But here's the problem. China has been preparing for exactly this. They've developed DF-21 and DF-26 missiles, nicknamed carrier killers. These are hypersonic weapons designed to strike moving ships at sea. US carriers, the backbone of our naval power, would have to operate at least 1,000 miles away from the Chinese coast to stay safe. That's too far to effectively defend Taiwan. The US would have to rely on long-range bombers, submarines, and fighter jets launched from bases in Japan and South Korea. But those bases are also within range of Chinese missiles. The first hours of a US-China conflict wouldn't be ships dueling at sea. It would be missiles obliterating airbases and ports before planes can even take off. Now add another layer. Japan, South Korea, the Philippines. Every US ally in the region becomes a target the moment we enter the fight. China would strike Okinawa, where 30,000 US troops are stationed. They'd threaten South Korea, knowing that Seoul is only 30 miles from the North Korean border. And North Korea, China's unstable ally, might see this as the perfect moment to invade the South. Suddenly, you don't have one war. You have three. Taiwan, Korea, and the broader Pacific. This is World War III, not in Europe, in Asia, and it's faster, deadlier, and more technologically advanced than anything in history. But here's where it gets even darker. Nuclear weapons. Both China and the United States have them. Thousands of them. And there's a terrifying scenario called escalation spiral. Let's say the US sinks half of China's invasion fleet. China, facing humiliation and potential regime collapse, considers using a tactical nuclear weapon on a US carrier group. Just one. To prove they're serious, the US retaliates. Suddenly, cities are on the table. Beijing, Shanghai, Los Angeles, San Francisco. The doctrine of mutually assured destruction is supposed to prevent this. But in the chaos of war, with miscommunication and desperation, that doctrine can fail. No one wants nuclear war, but no one wanted World War I either. And yet, a single assassination triggered a conflict that killed 20 million people. Taiwan could be that assassination, the spark that burns the world. And here's the part nobody talks about. Let's say somehow the war stays conventional. No nukes. The US and allies successfully defend Taiwan. China's invasion fails. What happens next? China doesn't just go home and apologize. The Communist Party's legitimacy is built on strength. If they lose, Xi Jinping could be overthrown. The party could fracture, and a collapsing nuclear superpower is more dangerous than a stable one. Alternatively, let's say China wins. They take Taiwan. The US doesn't intervene, or intervenes and loses. What then? Every US ally in Asia realizes that American security guarantees are worthless. Japan starts building nuclear weapons. South Korea does the same. The entire regional order collapses. China becomes the dominant superpower in the Pacific, and the West loses access to the most critical supply chain in the modern world. There are no good endings here, only different degrees of catastrophe. Now let's talk about what happens to you. Because a war over Taiwan doesn't stay in Asia, it comes to your home immediately. First, the economy. Remember how we said Taiwan makes 60% of the world's semiconductors? The moment TSMC's factories go offline, whether from Chinese missiles or sabotage or occupation, global tech production stops. Apple can't make iPhones, Ford can't make cars, hospitals can't get medical devices. The supply chain doesn't just slow, it shatters. Economists estimate that a Taiwan war would erase $10 trillion from the global economy in the first year. That's not a recession. That's a depression. Inflation would explode. Not 2%, not 5%. We're talking 20–30% as supply collapses and panic buying begins. Grocery stores would run out of food because logistics systems rely on chips. Your credit card might not work because banking infrastructure depends on semiconductors. Gas stations can't pump fuel without computer systems. Modern civilization runs on chips, and all of them flow through Taiwan. Second, energy. China could blockade the Strait of Malacca, the narrow waterway between Malaysia and Indonesia. Half of the world's oil passes through there. If China closes it, oil prices don't double, they quintuple. Europe, which is already energy dependent after losing Russian gas, would face fuel shortages, rolling blackouts, rationing, heating systems failing in winter, people freezing. This isn't fear-mongering, this is logistics. Energy is the foundation of everything, and a Taiwan war breaks that foundation. Third, the financial system. The US dollar is the global reserve currency, but if the US goes to war with China, Beijing would immediately dump its $1 trillion+ in US Treasury bonds. The dollar could collapse, not weaken, collapse. Global trade, which is priced in dollars, would freeze. Countries wouldn't know what currency to use. Barter systems might return. This sounds medieval, but it's happened before. Weimar Germany, Zimbabwe, Venezuela. Currency collapse is real, and it destroys lives. Fourth, alliances shatter. NATO, already strained, would face an existential crisis. Does Europe back the US in a Pacific war, or do they stay neutral to preserve trade with China? If NATO splits, Russia sees an opportunity. They invade the Baltics, or Finland, or Poland. Suddenly you have war in Europe and Asia simultaneously. The entire post-World War II order, the system that's kept relative peace for 80 years, disintegrates. And fifth, the human cost. Millions dead. Not just soldiers, civilians. Taipei, a city of 7 million, would be leveled. Shanghai, if the US strikes back, could face the same. Refugee crises would dwarf Syria. Tens of millions fleeing war zones. Where do they go? Who takes them? Humanitarian catastrophe on a scale we've never seen. And that's if it stays conventional. If nukes get involved, we're talking hundreds of millions dead. Radiation poisoning, nuclear winter, crop failures, starvation. This isn't a movie. This is what modern great power war looks like. Total and final. So what's the answer? How do we avoid this? The truth is, there might not be one. Taiwan is caught between two superpowers with incompatible goals. China will not give up its claim. Taiwan will not submit. The United States cannot afford to lose. This is what political scientists call a Thucydides trap. When a rising power threatens to displace an established power, war becomes almost inevitable. It happened with Athens and Sparta, Britain and Germany, and now the US and China. History suggests we're on a collision course, but history is not destiny. There are off-ramps, diplomacy, economic interdependence, mutual deterrence. The problem is, all of those require trust, and trust is in short supply. China sees the US as a declining empire trying to contain their rise. The US sees China as an authoritarian regime threatening the rules-based order. Taiwan sees itself as a free democratic society that deserves self-determination. And the rest of the world? They just want their chips and cheap goods and to not get vaporized. The lesson here is uncomfortable. We are living on borrowed time. The global system we take for granted, the one that delivers next day, Amazon packages and cheap flights and TikTok videos, is fragile. It's held together by a few critical choke points. Taiwan is one of them. And if that choke point breaks, everything breaks. So the next time you look at your phone, remember, that device in your hand is the reason nations might go to war. Technology isn't neutral, it's power. And power is always contested. Taiwan isn't just an island, it's the fuse. And the bomb is already built. Here's my question for you. If you were the US president and China invaded Taiwan tomorrow, what would you do? Intervene and risk World War III? Or stay out and let China take control? There's no right answer, but I want to hear yours. Drop your strategy in the comments below. If this deep dive into the most dangerous flashpoint on Earth opened your eyes, smash that like button and subscribe to The Wealth Forum. Turn on notifications, because we break down the geopolitics, economics, and brutal truths that shape our world. The Taiwan crisis isn't coming. It's already here. And what happens next will define the 21st century. Thanks for watching. Stay informed. And remember, the future isn't written yet, but it's being written right now.